can of, you know.
I am resident of Colorado for YouTube. Joel Sains, that is my buddy Alan Gallant, that's my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk the movie Excalibur, which was made in 1981. It was directed by John Bowman.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, let's see. Who was this distributed by? Distributed by Warner Brothers. Production company was actually Orion Pictures. Music by Trevor Jones, which was really, really good. Underrated is the music in this. Cinematography is done by Alex Thompson, which is really good. This cost $11 million to make. You want to guess how much it made?
Like 26 million, something like that.
$35 million.
Awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, it definitely was worth making. Yes.
There's so many questions I have here.
Academy Award nominations too.
I have so many questions here, guys. What did you think about a young Helen Mirren here, Patrick?
She's fantastic, and I hate to besmirch her. Relatively speaking to her career, this is not necessarily young Helen Mirren. This is middle Helen Mirren.
Yeah, it is. She's almost 40 here, I think.
And she had been doing stuff, I think, since the late 60s with Ken Russell and
correct
and Savage
and
Messiah.
Film, and probably a little bit earlier than that in terms of stage. So
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
She doesn't look 40 here.
I'll tell her you said that.
Yeah.
She's just marvelous in the film.
Yes. Alan, what did you think of a 40-year-old Helen Mirren?
When I first saw this film, this was probably the first thing I ever saw Helen Mirren do, and I saw this movie right around the time it was released. Saw it in a movie theater. On the big screen, the cinematography is fantastic. It's really good. It's moody, and the contrast between certain scenes that take place in the dark or in the fog as opposed to the sunlight. The armory looks really good in this film.
And it ages. It evolves with the movie. I love that.
Yeah, it does. And I'm pretty sure that this armory most of the armor was either, depending on the close-ups and the scenes and so on, was either made out of some kind of advanced plastics or it was made out of very thin metal, but it looked really good. And it's very stylized.
Yes.
We're talking about the Dark Ages here, but we're seeing armor from like the 15th century, probably, something that cool looking. But it's really cool looking stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I was impressed with this film all the way through. The style of the film is it's high late 19th century, early 20th century stage. It's Shakespearean stuff. The way that the actors approach the roles, larger than life, but all consistently done. So it really works well as storytelling, and it's also part of that epic mythology somewhere floating between paganism and early Christianity. There's all this sort of different references, and the clash of worlds is happening and all of this sort of thing. So it's cool. Very much like it.
The costumes were designed by Bob Ringwood. The armor was designed by Terry English.
So Bob Ringwood, that's the guy who did the still suits in Dune. He also did the Batman costume for Michael Keaton.
Cool. Very cool.
And he did, for Fantasy Island TV series, he did Tattoo's Codpiece.
Massive.
Nice.
It's almost larger than him.
It's very refined work, like a clockmaker.
Yes.
What did you guys think of Gabriel Byrne here as Uther Pendragon?
Again, he follows the scriptive style very well in this. He's very intense, and he's sort of the first character that you focus on that's incredibly intense. It sort of sets the tone for it. He and Nicole Williamson. So he's great. This movie was a boon to Irish actors. It was an absolute boon, and it was shot in Ireland. A lot of it was. So
I know a lot of it was John Borman's backyard.
Yeah, Borman was
Literally his backyard.
Yeah, it was really good too, and he found a lot of those RSC actors, some Irish, some British, that were early in their careers in terms of film, but had been established on the stage, and he knew they would have the sense of the type of style of acting that he wanted for this particular film. So,
yeah. What did you think of Gabriel Byrne as Uther Pendragon, Patrick?
I was fine. I know that's a sort of a shallow response, but he does the job, and I accept his strength, and I accept his sense of determination. These are things. I mean, obviously, Arthur's going to have a different moral compass, but he's going to inherit the sense of drive and purpose, and at least purity of mission that Uther will have.
Mm-hmm.
Or that Uther had. And by purity of mission, I don't mean following pure missions, but when he is on a task, that's it. He's all-consuming.
Focused. Yes, absolutely. And even obsessed. Obviously his lust changes the entire plan that Merlin has, and so he has to whip up a new plan right away, which he does. So that's an interesting twist to the, in terms of the motivation and Merlin's role in all of that is very cool. More Darth stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, Morgana was just a little girl when she witnessed her mother sleep with another man.
Mm-hmm.
and in Gabriel Byrne's character Uther Pendragon, and he has Excalibur that was given to him by Merlin from the Lady of the Lake, and he puts the sword. He goes, whoever lifts the sword will be king, and he puts the sword in the stone, which is one of the oldest stories you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to what is it, Idlewild Park, Storybook Forest has a sword in the stone. So.
Yeah, it's pretty common to the Arthurian legends. I mean, all the major ones have the sword in the stone. So
yeah.
Wait, Joel, what you can't drop a reference like that and then not tell us what you mean. What is this Idlewild Park you're talking about?
Idlewild Park is a place where you take young kids, but they have this. There's a section of the park called Storybook Forest, because really the park was also used to be, it's called Daniel Tiger. There's a thing called Daniel Tiger's neighborhood, but it used to be Mr. Rogers' neighborhood through there.
Okay.
That you would ride on a train. Now, Storybook Forest actually hires actors to pose as some of the characters in it. Like you'll see Still White, you'll see the Big Bad Wolf, you'll see Little Red Riding Hood walking around, and in their certain areas, you'll see pirates from like the Good Ship Lollipop or something like that. And
so
you'll
this let me just. I'm sorry, Joel. Let me interrupt. I'm gonna guess this is to keep the kids sort of distracted and calm before you. And
exactly. Put them in the oven. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, good.
Well, we took and sometimes with the Sword and Stone, they'll have like not a knight, but they'll have somebody dressed like royalty there. On occasion, not all the time. It's more you'll see the princesses and other stuff there, but they have a sword. As you're walking through Storybook Forest, there's a Sword and Stone. Now they moved the location where it used to be, but it's still in Storybook Forest. But
no cartoon character has come along yet who could withdraw
actually pull it out. That's right.
Yeah.
Mickey left and moved to Orlando because he couldn't do it. So
I told Snow White she should do it. She's like, no.
Snow White's not into pulling out. So
oh my god. But yeah, so yeah, that's a thing in at Idlewild Park where we once, me and Julie took the kids there before. So, and I used to go there as a kid and a teenager and stuff. It's a fun place to go.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it is. It's a good place to take young kids and have a good time. With this movie here, there's a lot of really cool location shots. They also do film in the studio a bit. What did you guys think of the beautiful cinematography of this movie?
It's just that. I mean, it's evocative. And you can also tell it's done on the cheap. There's a lot of smoke and light in this, but it doesn't harm the story. In some ways, it's a very dark shadows telling of all of this. And it's very theatrical. I mean, it is the essence of it, where we are using just a few elements of theater, but we're using the strongest ones we have that make everything else irrelevant as long as you have an imagination and care.
Yeah. I'll send you guys some pictures of Storybook Forest later on. But with this movie, I really like because the movie is called Excalibur. They do make the sword a huge focus, as much as Uther Pendragon, as much as Arthur, and you do have to. There was actually a video game with the same name, but it wasn't necessarily based upon this movie, which was really fun to play for I think the PlayStation 2. I remember playing. Fun game. But with this, they get into the Knights of the Round Table, which is fun. What's you guys' favorite? Because there's so many scenes in this. What's you guys' favorite character introduction?
Oh, Merlin.
Yeah, Nicole Williamson proves out why he was worth all of the trouble that he would cause.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, he was a very insecure kind of guy on set or on stage, and would be difficult. But his acting is amazing. The way that he uses his voice, he actually morphs his voice depending on what state of reality he's in. He'll be like this in certain things. It's like I'm talking from the past, and then other times he's talking like this, and he's almost comedic, and he is comedic actually.
Right.
In places where things are happening that he's not aware of, that he hasn't seen before.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant.
My favorite character introduction is the introduction of Percival. Really, because Lancelot makes his introduction with the fight, because Arthur crosses the bridge and they have this duel and he breaks Excalibur, which is a cool scene because the Lady Lake comes out, right? And gives him Excalibur like remade over. But I really love the introduction of Percival, which is because he starts off as a squire the way Arthur did. Really, really cool. And I love too how during the fight sequence after Arthur pulls Excalibur, he hands the sword to the guy and he says, "Knight me. You must knight. Please knight me." And the guy does. What did you guys make of some of that scene?
It's the inspiration of courage, because he's basically saying, "Knight me or cut my head off."
Yeah.
And so they respect that. I think that you can see the conflict building, and it's very theatrical. It's very stage theatrics, where he's like, I'm going to that kind of thing, where there's a real tension, and it's big. It's really big.
He was out of shout wipes also. Because it's gonna be a real mess. And
get out of this swamp now.
It might be okay, but you know, this is going to be a stain,
Mhm.
no matter what sort of knight he would have turned into.
It's true. It's true.
I go ahead and knight him.
That's right. Give him a box of Depend.
Sorry. Um,
Getting
Yeah,
back
those-
to Percival, you're right. Percival's one of the golden threads in the story.
yeah.
He's definitely.
You get a slightly younger Liam Neeson in this movie too as a knight, who duels with Lancelot, which is really really cool.
You're leaving cans of shit later around.
Oh, sorry. Um, yeah,
Liam Neeson is what? Canned shit? Okay.
yeah. I really like the duel between
You can't get it
Lancelot
fresh.
and Liam Neeson's character, and he doesn't. Because I had forgotten some of this movie. He doesn't kill him. He doesn't kill Liam Neeson's character,
No.
which I'm like, okay.
No, it would be unseemly for Lancelot to kill him. It would sully the purity of the character to do that. In much the same way as Lancelot doesn't want to, he doesn't want to kill Arthur when he has his challenge with him. He just wants to best him or be bested. One of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, and Arthur sort of realizes that too when he breaks Excalibur to win the fight.
Mhm.
He goes, I wasn't supposed to win this fight.
Right.
It's sort of in many ways, Lancelot is like a humility lesson for Arthur in a lot of ways.
Yes, his purity, his vision at that point. Of course, it's laid low later because he becomes enamored of Guinevere, but that's part of the classic story and conflict too. So that has to happen. That's part of it. That's part of what Merlin does know is going to happen.
Yeah. Guinevere in that nun outfit was absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, I mean, you put an attractive woman like that in white, all white, like that's very dramatic, very dramatic. She's still a very good-looking woman. She's 72 years old now, but she looks. I've seen pictures of her. I get curious and I look, well, what do they look like now? That kind of thing. And she looks great. Liam Neeson was only about like 25, I think, when he did this film, something like that. So he's relatively young.
Yeah, he in many ways he's like a B-C actor in the 80s because there's a lot of movies he's in he gets killed off in. Like, for example, there's a movie he's in that stars Patrick Swayze called Next of Kin.
Yes.
Where it's like a mob movie, if you will, a revenge movie.
He's isn't he also in? I'm trying. Yeah, no, Next to Kin is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, that's the one where he plays like this like backwoods character.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And then of course he got Darkman, which was a sleeper.
Oh yeah, great movie.
A large hit, and that kind of elevated his profile.
Yeah.
But that was like almost 10 years after this movie. So
that and the 90s was really good for Liam Neeson. Darkman, Schindler's List. I mean, he came into his own by the 90s. I think. He was not a B player.
No, absolutely. And at this point, I think again he's in a company of actors that all kind of break out eventually. The Gabriel Byrnes, the Patrick Stewarts, and him. They all end up having. Karen Hines is in this somewhere. It's a very tiny role, but he's in it. Of course, he has had a huge career in the last 20 years as well. So you get a lot of these guys that were used to being in a company. They were used to being in Shakespeare companies and so on. So they although they had, developed egos from being at the RSC or wherever, RADA, or wherever they trained, they also understood what it meant to be a part of a company and to contribute that way. And this is that kind of movie. I mean, it is an ensemble. It's creatively an ensemble. It's energetically an ensemble. And then you have standout performances that come out of that with your leads. But it's like a play in a lot of ways. It's a very long play. But well, actually it wouldn't be a long play traditionally, but it'd be a regular length play traditionally, or even a short play according to the Shavian system of plays. We have 3 acts and they're all an hour long. But
it has such a good pace for so long, or at fast pace for so long, that when it slows down, I think it's a little jarring.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had one fewer battle and slow down the first act so that it matches a little bit the rest of the movie, because you can't really tart up the rest of the movie. You got to let it be what it's going to be.
Yes.
But it does. I every time I watch it, and I love this movie. I think this is probably the second best movie of the 1980s. But I want to look at my watch and guys, is this the same movie I was watching an hour ago? Because it doesn't feel like it.
Right. Yeah. There's a different modus of propulsion or slowing of that.
Wagner slows everything down.
Yeah. You're right. It does. And I mean, you wouldn't necessarily have that many battles or that long of battles on stage. In order to, you would create the battle, you would show, it would be in brief, it would establish something for the audience, and then you move on with the rest of the story based on what occurs. But yeah, I would agree with that there's some of that grinding that happens in some of those scenes where obviously I think Borman was very enamored of, oh my God, look at what we have here. And look at the levels we have and how we can have these fights happen here and just, going on about that.
Yeah. I mean, because he just had one big fight in Deliverance. But now it's like Deliverance again and again and again, over and over and over and over.
Too many pretty mouths.
Joel, you like that movie?
I've seen Deliverance. I would make a case one of the most underrated spy movies. Anyway,
what? You did what to who?
What?
You made the kids watch it?
No, I said it's one of the most underrated spy movies. Anyway,
it's the introduction of Matt Helm in the second act, as always.
Can you imagine? Heard you have a pretty good time around here, boys.
You got a pretty mouth. I certainly do.
Anybody want a salad?
This is, I love the pacing of this movie, because even when they slow it down, they're slowing it down to tell you a story of what's to come later in a lot of ways. Lancelot and Guinevere staring at each other, and how many times Lancelot goes away from her. He doesn't even want to be at the round table or in the castle. He doesn't want the temptation of being around her, so he goes to sleep in the forest. And the only reason he comes back really is because of the accusation and the challenge by Liam Neeson's character.
Joel, did you ever see Match Game?
Probably a couple episodes.
Okay, we're going to do a Match Game moment. You just fill in the blank. Guinevere said, Lancelot, I think my husband's getting suspicious. Last night he said my blank smelled like a Frenchman.
I'm going to give...
Now, Joel, you have to guess what goes in
Brett Summers' answer here.
I can't read. What does it say?
Hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha. My hoo-ha smells like a Frenchman. Joel Sane, what do you say? Fill in that blank.
Oh my God. Oh my God. No, I'm gonna pass. Anyway.
Well, the correct answer was my conscience.
My conscience.
It smells like a Frenchman.
I do think this movie is about self-awareness and self-awareness, because the one thing Arthur says to Merlin, God, you warned me about this. Like you warned me this would happen, and I didn't listen. Because he asks Merlin, are they together? And he says, yeah, they're together. And what you have happen is he takes his Excalibur and he puts it into the stone, back into the earth, which goes through Merlin, which is a really unique storytelling method of what's to come later. really, really good job with the pacing. The in-between stuff, yeah, you get all the battles and stuff, which are really cool. But that in-between stuff is just as important.
Oh,
With
yeah.
Yeah,
this
it is.
movie.
That's where the story really gets told, and there are resolutions to various aspects of the story. Is in that all that between stuff. Yeah, absolutely. This is like Greek. This is like Greek tragedy in a lot of ways. There's a fatalistic sort of, and this is where the paganism comes in. I think the most through Merlin, he envisions what is happening because Merlin lives in the past, the present, and the future. He lives simultaneously in all of those places. And so he knows what's going to happen in mostly. Some things there he's surprised by, but mostly he knows what's going to happen, and it's very fatalistic in that way. It's the gods have preordained this is going to happen, and there will be triumph and there will be tragedy, and again, like most people. One of the things that that Arthur inherits from his father is that fatal flaw of pride that happens, and there is a certain that focus that his father had that you mentioned that he has as well, which alienates him from his wife, the queen, in a lot of ways, and she ends up turning to Lancelot. So that's the aspect of it. Yeah, Lance, a lot. Also, I would like to make mention that this movie has more UK actor nudity in it than almost any other UK-based film I have ever seen.
It's like it was directed by Ken Russell.
It's like it was, or maybe even a little, except for the lack of, shall we say, enlargement of the ladies. It might have even been Russ Meyer.
Yeah, but Russ Meyer Excalibur. Oh my God! Charles Napier is King Arthur.
Yeah. And Vixen as Guinevere. Yeah.
Erica Gavin.
Yes.
One of the greats.
Yeah. Apparently she's been a hot ticket at conventions too. She's appeared at a lot.
I think she's beloved. She had kind of a breakdown. It was not an easy shoot for her to do, and she had never really apparently thought about her body before, and she got very, very, very dysmorphic, had an eating disorder. That's why in Beyond the Valley of Dolls, if you look at stills from her in both movies side by side, nothing alike. She's skinny as a rail.
Yeah, she's very petite in that one. So I think she developed an eating disorder and so on for a while. But she did later on. She started appearing at conventions. I know that.
That's wonderful.
Signing stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys?
Beyond the Valley of Avalon. Yeah.
What did you guys think of all the cool-looking castles we got?
The Land and the King are one. They look terrific.
Yeah, and they're reflective of the different stages of the king's state of mind and physical state as well. So you get the land kind of desolated and all
that
this
stuff
that's happening.
Really horrific.
Yeah,
it's completely apocalyptic, especially when you have Guinevere's out there and Lancelot's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not expecting that. The guilt that he has.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I really like the layers of the castle for Camelot, because underneath you have where Merlin is showing Morgana all the stuff that's going on between Lancelot, and Guinevere and Arthur. That was a really, really great shot by the director and really great cinematography work and cool effect too. How they did all that.
It is. It's a test. Merlin's test for Morgana to see. He's showing her something that's heartbreaking and somewhat horrific in terms of betrayal and all of that sort of thing. But this is what we do. How do you handle this as a seer? As somebody who sees these things. How do you handle this? And she's just going, show me more. She's like getting off on it. And he's like, this is when he understands that she has a flaw here. That's that's he doesn't want to tell her things anymore. So that's a key story element as well.
Yeah, a lot of you guys talked about the armor. Really cool armor in this. The golden armor that you see Arthur's son wearing later, which is really cool, really menacing.
Mordred. It's also almost, it's narcissistic too. It's this young boy helmet thing with all the curly hair. It's very reminiscent of sort of some of the Roman emperors that were more or less narcissistic.
Caligula would wear something like that.
Yes, exactly. Maybe Nero, somebody like that might wear something like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
Is this you guys' favorite, I don't know, I guess, medieval movie or King Arthur movie?
Well, I mean, it's my favorite Arthurian movie by far.
Yeah.
Nothing touches it.
Yes. In terms of that myth, in terms of that story, it's definitely tops. And of course, who better to tell it than the countries of origin?
Yeah.
It's a UK story.
Yeah. One of my favorite sort of old story, if you have Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut is really, really good.
Yes, it is. It is good. That's of course that's a bit later. That's the Crusades story.
That's not the guy. No, that's not the Guy Ritchie thing. Guy Ritchie did a version of this. It was pretty bad.
Oh, are you thinking of the one with
Daniel Craig? No.
I can't remember who was in it now.
Dame Edna.
Yes, Dame Edna as Saladin.
Should be great. God.
Yeah, this is a really, really good movie. What's you guys' favorite scene?
My most memorable scene, I don't know if it's my favorite scene, but the one I remembered from it the most, the one that impressed me the most, was when Merlin comes back as a shape. He's still imprisoned, but he's able to project himself into Morgana's chambers and trick her into saying the spell. That was an impressive scene, and it also, it's her undoing, and it's really the punctuation of her undoing is through her son, who is a selfish, narcissistic, self-involved guy who has been fed the poison milk since he was old enough to understand it, and so it comes back on her that way. He kills her, he strangles her. So that's a really, that scene just stuck in memory. I'm not sure it's my favorite scene in the movie, but it's certainly the most memorable one for me.
Patrick?
I think the whole thing at the fair, when the sword is drawn, that sequence is just, it's human and it's warm, and he's got a Willie Loomis quality.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's in the middle of all this beautiful chaos too, all this wonderful chaos.
Yeah, I really like just the friendship and camaraderie and doubt and pride and everything else that's going on in that scene. And Arthur put it back. He puts it back. I'm like, oh, sorry,
pull it again.
Sorry, one of you guys. Oops, just making sure it's all in one piece.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite scene, or scenes really, is the transition from the light moments to the dark moments and back again. Really, really great cinematographer work and smart director work too. Just Morgana and her son being in this sort of cave-like, and then having a bunch of knights. Because again, there's times
I'm sure they had a bunch of.
I'm sure she did anyway.
Yeah, really, really, really good stuff. I don't think I have any more questions for you guys. Is there anything you want to add before we get out?
It's a highly appropriate film for the epic story it's telling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Straight 10 is the movie Excalibur.
No question.
You can find this on the National Archives. I'll leave a link in the description box if you guys want to go watch it. It's worth watching for sure. Also, links to Patrick Murray's Dark Shadows Day Book Unbound. Go pick it up if you haven't already. And links to Alan Glenn's YouTube channel, Collinsport After Dark, is going to be in the description box. Go check it out. Have a good night, guys.
Sniff wisely. Take care.